Measure your weapons later, boys. If we want to survive this, we do it as a team.
Well, I sure as hell didn't see that one coming. Anyways, welcome back, true believers and all you merry Marvelites, to another very exciting Ultimate Alliance 3 related video. So recently we did receive a few new gameplay impressions from the Game Informer crew who actually got to play the Black Order a few weeks ago during their coverage trip, and also actually see some in-depth gameplay of the game in general. Now, even though there is a lot to unpack relating to some of the newest information regarding what you can do in the game as well as what features come along with it, but still, given what we know about the Ultimate Alliance franchise as a whole, I still think that this is pretty much more of the same as what we got prior. Now, that's not really to say that Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 The Black Order will be a bad game by any means. It just seems very similar to that of the previous games without doing really anything much to try and change the standard formula. And even though it is a bit disappointing to say, I do think the general consensus for the majority of the people who end up playing Ultimate Alliance 3 once it does release on July 19th will either be that of saying that it's either really mediocre or just an average experience. But first, I do think it's very important that we highlight the major bits of new info that were revealed by Game Informer so that way we can fully judge the game in its entirety. But just to summarize it for all of you right now, if you have played the previous Ultimate Alliance games with 1 and 2, you'll pretty much receive the exact same type of experience within Ultimate Alliance 3. So to start off with, what we see in the new gameplay footage is that every time a new character is introduced within the game's story, they will showcase their name on screen with some little bits of info relating to their character. Now, even though this is a slight detail, I do think it adds a bit more depth to the game, since some people may be really new to the Ultimate Alliance franchise and may not even know some of who these characters are. And given the wide variety of comic book characters that are featured within this game, such as Spider-Man, the Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, the X-Men, the Defenders, and more, I do think it is very cool to get some tidbits about each character once they do pop up during the game's story. And speaking of the story, even though I won't fully reveal any major plot details that spoil the game's narrative, I will confirm that the first chapter of the game does include the Guardians of the Galaxy in space, and the second chapter does revolve around the Avengers and some other Marvel heroes in the raft. And given that introduction alone, this is a major change from how the standard Ultimate Alliance games begun with the heroes of Captain America, Thor, Wolverine, Spider-Man, and or Iron Man. And seeing how the beginning of the game is essentially trying to take out Nebula and her Kree army with the Guardians as your starting party, this is going to be a very interesting starting point for the game. Now, moving on to some features that were actually included within the previous Ultimate Alliance games are essentially what all comic book fans love in superhero video games, which is of course alternate costumes. So yes, Game Informer did officially confirm that there are a multitude of alternate costumes that you can equip for every single character within the roster of Ultimate Alliance 3. However, I'm not entirely sure if this is going to follow the same formula as Ultimate Alliance 1 or Ultimate Alliance 2. And for our sake, I really hope that it's the latter. The reason why I say this is because if you have played Ultimate Alliance 2, the sad thing about that game is that each character only had one costume, and that was that. Whereas within Ultimate Alliance 1, every character seemed to have at least up to 3 costumes that you could choose from. And knowing that this is pretty much going to be the largest roster of characters that we have ever had in any Ultimate Alliance game, with there being a total of over 30, I do think it would be really cool if there were multiple costumes for each individual hero. That way there would be more of a feel of customization relating to the upgrade selection as well as the costume selection for each individual character that you want to play as. Plus, if Team Ninja were able to do that, it would immediately make it better than Ultimate Alliance 2. Now, as for another feature that I think could possibly top the previous Ultimate Alliance games is this newest mode within Ultimate Alliance 3 called Infinity Trials. So essentially what Infinity Trials is turns out to be a form of challenge mode that you can use during Ultimate Alliance 3's side objectives and also use it to gain experience, different rewards, and also possibly other alternate costumes. And basically what would be going on here is you would be doing time trials, endurance rounds, and possibly even follow certain objectives that appear on screen. Now, even though this isn't necessarily identical to that of the comic book missions within the previous Ultimate Alliance games, I still think this is a fun side objective that you can do besides doing the main story. And along with there being a variety of waves that you can fight against in the game, I do think it is nice that you can also gain rewards from doing these trials as well. Now, with all of these new and intriguing points out of the way regarding Ultimate Alliance 3's gameplay, I do want to discuss some of my concerns regarding the game overall. This doesn't just come from my own personal opinion after playing both of the previous Ultimate Alliance games, but it also comes from the own personal hands-on impressions of the Game Informer crew. So if you managed to see the new footage of UA3 in action with the audio enabled, you would have also heard the newest voice acting from some of the characters. And if you've played one of Marvel's oldest franchises of Marvel vs. Capcom, you would identify that some of the characters in this game do have the same exact voice actors. And this primarily includes Eric Loomis as Iron Man, Nolan North as Rocket Raccoon, Brian Bloom as Captain America, and more. Now, even though I don't have a personal problem with these voice actors, some of the lines that they are given within this game's story do sound a bit cringy at specific points. The main example of this is that apparently after Captain America defeats a certain boss, he will say a dialogue along the lines of "Let freedom ring." And given that one line of dialogue alone, I can already tell that this is going to be a very kid-friendly and simple story to say the least, and even though that isn't necessarily a bad thing, with someone like me who likes a bit more depth with the overall narrative that is being given, I do think that this is going to get the job done for easy Marvel-going fans, but for someone like me who wants something a bit more, I don't think it's going to do it in that regard. However, there are going to be a lot of character interactions that do intrigue me with the main cast like Daredevil, Spider-Man, and the Avengers, so I am very curious to see what their lines of dialogue are going to be. But as for one of the biggest gameplay perspectives which I was worried about from the get-go is what happens when all these characters are fighting on screen at the same time. Given the Game Informer impressions as well as what you can definitely see from the previous Ultimate Alliance games is that there is in fact a lot going on screen all at the same time when fighting all the enemies at once with all your heroes. However, the main difference from UA3 to the other UA games is that this time around there are in fact going to be damage number indicators whenever you do attack an enemy on this screen. Luckily, there is an option to take that part of the game off in case you don't want to be bombarded with crazy action and numbers indicating the damage all at the same time. And that was one of my biggest flaws with the previous games, that it is really hard to track your own character without getting lost in all the action. So hopefully, if you're someone who wants to play this game in a single player mode, the newest edition of the hero camera can possibly make it more entertaining to take on all the action by yourself. But if you're someone who wants to play the game with your friends, I do think there is going to be a lot of hectic action on screen all at once for you to keep up with. Although, if you have played the previous games, I do think you know exactly what you're in for. And that perfectly translates to Game Informer's Ben Reeves' quote, who did summarize exactly what I was thinking about Ultimate Alliance 3 in the first place. And to quote Ben directly, he states, "It doesn't feel like this series has evolved with the times. I was a bit disappointed that each hero only has 4 powers, and while you can swap out which button is assigned to each power, there isn't much customization beyond that. Regardless of how you play, at the end of the day, I think fans know what they can expect from this game. It's not a giant leap forward for the series, but it's more Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which many comic fans have been eager to play for a long time." So just like Ben Reeves said, if you are a major Ultimate Alliance fan, this is essentially more of what we got in the past, and even though I was expecting a little bit more innovation within this third installment, I do think this is going to be very fun for hardcore fans of the series and Marvel fans as a whole. And with all that said, everyone, that's the video I have for you today, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. Given the footage that you've seen regarding Ultimate Alliance 3 and all the impressions that we hear from Game Informer, what do you think about the current status of Ultimate Alliance 3, and are you going to personally pick the game up once it does release on July 19th? For me personally, it's been a while since I played the previous games, and even though I do have a bit of a disinterest relating to some of the aspects within this game, I still think I am a bit eager to try it out for myself. So hopefully by the end of all this coverage, we may get a possible announcement of a Switch bundle relating to Ultimate Alliance 3 with a custom Nintendo Switch to go along with it. And seeing how all of next week is going to relate to new gameplay as well as character profiles relating to specific heroes of the Ultimate Alliance universe, the more footage that we do get, the more intrigued I am to see how it turns out. And with all that said, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. Stay merry, Marvelites, and peace out.
You certainly weren't who we were expecting. But we will be more than glad to kill you anyway.